Hello everybody! It is time for another episode of What I Made. If you are new here, this is the one video that I do per month, which has nothing to do with books. I mean, aside from the fact that I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I'm knitting, but other than that, no. This is where I talk about what I've been knitting, crocheting, and sometimes sewing, and I've got a lot to talk about this month. It is also 4th of July weekend here in the US, so if you hear any children screaming, dogs barking, or things going bang very loudly, it's fireworks season, what can I say? It is also hot, and I'm sitting here sweating even though my air conditioner is on, so yay. And I've got a whole bunch of very warm, woolly projects to show you. I might even put some of them on. I'm going to talk about finished projects first, as usual. I've got a lot to talk about there. Then works in progress, some natural dyeing that I'm very excited about, and then I'll probably end with some pretty yarn acquisitions and talking about things I'm going to start next. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with the two smaller projects that I finished in June. The first one I don't actually have to show you right now because I am a poor planner. I sewed a pair of shorts in June and they're currently in my laundry basket. There's not much to see there. They're just a pair of brown shorts, whatever. It's a big deal for me because I've been telling my mom for years that I need more shorts. She sewed up a whole batch of shorts for me when I was a teenager, and I've been wearing them ever since, and most of them have been completely worn out. But this time, I'm now making my own rather than asking my mom to do all the work for me, so I'm proud of myself. Also, I'm getting better at sewing, and it's not quite as scary as it once was. But yeah, this is one thing I don't actually have to show you right now. The other pair of small things I made are these socks, which I think I showed you when they were in progress last month. I don't have sock blockers, so it's very weird to show these to you. I'm gonna put them on my hand. This is just such a weird thing, but I need to stretch it out so you can actually see the design on these socks a little bit. These are the Curly Wurly socks by Anushka of the Crimson Stitchery. They're technically a summer sock. They're from her summer socks series from last year, I think. So they're a lot of lace and a lot of ribbing, and I made mine very long because I am a long sock kind of person. And this keeps happening to me. You'd think I would learn my lesson, but my socks are actually kind of different sizes because the first one that I knit is looser than the second pair, or not the second pair, the second sock. So my first sock is a little bit loose and my second sock is perfect and like a really tight gauge. When I finished the socks, I actually went back and I ripped out the foot of the first one and I re-knit it so it was tighter and it would fit a little bit better. So they're wearable, but one sock is a little bit looser than the other. And this keeps happening to me. This is the third time this has happened to me with socks, and what I've learned is that I just need to do socks at the same time. I need to have two pairs of circulars for magic looping, and I just work on one sock for a little bit and then switch to the other, back and forth, so that my tension is consistent between them. I don't really know why this happens, other than the second sock I know what I'm doing and I'm going faster, and that's probably why it's better. So there's that pair of socks. The yarn that I used for this is Third Vault Yarns. I think the Librarian sock base, which is a blue-faced Leicester blend with nylon in the color Cosmic Turtle, which is a Discworld inspired colorway. I really like the colorway, and the yarn is fuzzed up a little bit on this because I was not paying attention, and I actually sent this pair of socks through the washer and the dryer. So it's a little bit fuzzed up, but no harm, no foul. It's super wash wool, yay. So now on to the big projects that I finished this past month. I basically knit my fingers off. I mean, I was knitting so compulsively trying to finish these big things that I may have slightly injured my fingers. This is not good. I need to learn how to take more breaks, but I get kind of obsessive. So the first thing is a shawl, which was in progress last time. I think I showed it to you when it was about a third of the way done. And I love this shawl so much. It is so pretty, and it's my favorite color. Let's see if you can see that design. So this is the Quicksand Shawl by Hanna Maciejewska. It is from the 52 Weeks of Shawls book from Lilla, which I do not have to show you the pattern because the book is being loaned off to friends right now. But this pattern was the one that immediately caught my attention because it is cables and brioche, and if there's anything you just know I'm going to knit, it is something with brioche, and I'm quite fond of cabling now too. So the design is just this sort of like meandering cables with these brioche sections in between them, and it's an asymmetrical triangular shawl, so you start at this very teeny tiny end and then you just keep increasing and increasing and increasing until you bind off at the longest or widest part, I guess. This is pretty much the large size from the pattern. I ran out of yarn, probably because my gauge was a little bit off. So I'm like 20 or 30 rows short of the largest size in the pattern, but not that you could really tell. I knit this in Knit Picks Swish DK in the color Garnet Heather. This is literally my favorite shade of red, and I do not know how in the world you're supposed to wear a shawl like this. I don't know. I wear rectangular or semicircular shawls, and this is kind of like a really weird blanket with a super skinny end. But it was a process knit. I loved making it. It was just so much fun, and at some point I will learn how to properly wear it so I can get some use out of it. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. It's very soft. I don't think I would make a sweater out of Swish DK. I think it's a bit too fragile and low twist for that. It would probably pill a bunch, but for a shawl, I think it's probably fine. Then we have two garments that I finished. Actually, one of these I knit from beginning to end pretty much in June, so I've never showed it to you before. And then I also came back to a project that I had hibernating and I finally finished it. I'm actually gonna put this one on so you can see it better. The light is kind of weird because I'm filming in the evening rather than the morning, so I'm not sure how much detail you can see right now. But this is the Orime Pullover by Veronik Avery for Brooklyn Tweed, and it's knit in Brooklyn Tweed's Peary, which is a fingering weight, I think it's maybe Targhee wool or something like that kind of yarn, in the color Ginger Snap. I particularly love this color. You get it in the right light and it glows from within. So it's kind of an orangey brown. I mean, it's called Ginger Snap. It's like a gingery brown. So this has got to be the weirdest garment I've ever made, and I'll stand up so you can see a little bit more of it. So you can see this diagonal pattern created with knit stitches on a reverse stockinette background, and basically the shoulder seam is in the back. So you knit the back panel and then you knit the front panel, and then when you get up here and you're doing the neck shaping, you do the left and right shoulders, you knit them really far back so it goes over the shoulder, and then you also knit an extension for this collar, which is actually folded. And then there's a ton of seaming involved, and while I was knitting this, I had no idea how it would actually fit together. It just had this bizarre shape, especially the front piece with all these like extensions for the shoulders and the collar, and I figured it out, and now like it makes sense now, but I had no idea like even how to measure it and figure out like if it was gonna be correct or not, because I had to like knit things so it was long enough that the length would match up with the width of other parts and stuff. Yeah. So it was actually quite an easy pattern to follow. The instructions are quite detailed. It's literally row by row because you're working with a specific stitch pattern. It's very specific. But I just couldn't really wrap my head around the shaping of the pieces. So this was hibernating for a long time. I think I last worked on it in March, like February or March, and then I put it away because I had to knit this front piece and I found it very daunting. But I just blasted through the rest of it while kind of procrastinating on other things this month, and it was really fun, and now I've learned a lot from doing it. I would love to do more garments that have unusual constructions like this, rather than just all the raglan sweaters or all the drop shoulder tops and things like that. Those are fine, but this is different and kind of, you know, outside of the norm of what people usually do. I'm sure it's a lot harder to grade a pattern like this from multiple sizes though. So I'm pleased with it. And if only I can get the collar to stay in quite the right place. I've tacked it down a little bit more than the pattern says to, but I may end up like whip stitching the whole collar folded in rather than just the back and the front, because it's gonna bug me if it keeps turning up or whatever. So I'm happy with it though. And the last thing that I finished in June, this was my whale of a project. It is a cardigan, which I will put on to show you in a second. But this is the Bindweed cardigan by Ksenia and Naidyon. It was published in Making Stories issue 5. And I saw testers' versions of this earlier in the year and I thought it was gorgeous. Just these fantastic sleeves with cabling and nups, and it's knit with mohair held double with wool yarn, which is something I really enjoy knitting with. So I just had to make it and I finished it. So let me put this on so you can see it better. This is a very warm cardigan. It is very light, but it's so warm because of all that mohair and silk and wool and stuff. And I just love these sleeves. Aren't they really cool? They were kind of a nightmare to knit though. It took me quite a while to memorize the cable chart, so it was slow going when I had to refer to the chart line by line. The yarn that I used for this is all Knit Picks. The main color, the wool fingering weight yarn, is Knit Picks Twill Fingering. I think the color is Graphite, and then the mohair lace is Knit Picks Aloft and the color Carbon. The twill fingering color is a dark gray, like it's like a true dark gray, and the mohair is like a gray with a blue cast to it, and I think they blended together really lovely. You're gonna notice a theme here in a second that I've been using gray in a ton of projects. I actually really like gray, you know, and there are so many different variations on gray. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I also made one major mistake, which you may be able to see if you look at the neck band. I'm not going to point it out, but it is there. And eventually I will forget that I made that mistake, but by the time I realized that I had misread a chart, it was way too late to rip it back. Like I'd have to rip back all the way to the very, very beginning and start redoing the neckline from there. It was not gonna happen. I was already past splitting for the sleeves. So that bugs me, and I can't believe I misread a chart, but since that happened, I have had an eye exam and gotten new lenses for my glasses. So if it was the fact that my vision has been kind of blurry for the last year, I have fixed that. Moving on to works in progress now. I'm going to give you a quick update on the sweater that is going to take forever to knit. This is the Handsome Chris pullover. It is a reconstruction of the famous sweater from the Knives Out movie. I am knitting mine in the round. The pattern actually has you knit it in pieces, the front and the back, and then seam it. I'm skipping that and I'm just doing it in the round. So knitting the body is taking a while. It's so heavily cabled, guys, but look at that. I'm very proud of my progress so far. I put a stitch marker in, so yeah, that is where I was last time I showed it to you, so I have more than doubled the length of this in the past 6 weeks or so. I think I'm about maybe 2 to 4 inches away from splitting for the sleeves, but I need to do some measurements and compare it to some other sweaters to see exactly how long I want it to be before I start working flat for the front and the back when I split for the sleeves. And this is the easy part. I'm just knitting in a circle right now and there's no shaping or anything. The next couple of steps are gonna involve shaping, like for the neckline and stuff, and I'll have to go back and start referring to the pattern at that point, I suppose. I don't really know how to do neckline and arm or shoulder shaping. I can't Like, I understand the principle, but I don't know how to just do it on my own, so I'm going to be referring to those instructions. And once again, this is Knit Picks yarn. This is Knit Picks Simply Wool, I believe, in the color Wordsworth. And I don't know how much yarn I'm gonna need. I got like 8 skeins, like 800 grams, and hopefully that will be enough. This is just a project that eats yarn because of all the cables. This next project is a brioche shawl that I am loving. I think this design is so cool. It's a really different like brioche motif from what I usually see, and I've just been working on it compulsively. So this is the Hedge Maze Shawl by Julia Decker, who is Deunyn Knits, I think, on Ravelry. I saw this when it hit Ravelry and I was just so taken with the way that it looks, and I'm really in a shawl mood right now for whatever reason. So you may recognize that this yarn that I'm using is something I said I was going to use for a different brioche shawl last month. I just changed my mind. This is Treasure Goddess yak sock yarn, I think, in a purple color, which I think is Song of the Siren, and the gray color, which is the undyed yak wool blend, is Sandy Shores, I think. They're really, really beautiful colors, and I'm so glad that I paired them together for brioche because there's such good contrast. It really makes the design pop. I really love this yarn. I didn't do a swatch, so I don't really know how it behaves once it's blocked, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna be absolutely fine. It's really, really nice. So I've done the first 2 sections, and I've now just barely started on the 3rd section, which is the last one. It's gonna take me a while. With shawls like this is a like half circle shawl. The beginning goes so fast, but then once you've gotten past 2 or 3 of the increased sections, you're suddenly working with 400 stitches, and it takes a lot longer to do 72 rows. So I will probably finish this in July, but it's not gonna be right away. And this last work in progress, I'm finally returning to crochet after a very, very long time of just doing knitting. I've made 1 block of a blanket. So this pattern is the Coral Story blanket by Lilla Bjorn. It's really beautiful. This is the crochet version of brioche, and as you might expect, I also really enjoy doing brioche and crochet as well. I've done this technique before on some crochet socks like 2 years ago, I think, and I really enjoyed it then, and this was a lot more challenging. So this is going to be an afghan made out of hexagons, and this is the big version of the brioche hexagon, and I have also just started on the other version, which is a hexagon with just a small brioche section, and then the rest is in the single, the main color. So I'm about halfway through this second block, and yeah, I don't know how many blocks I'm going to make. I think the pattern has 14 or so blocks, and I will probably make a larger version for like a full twin size afghan, I suppose, or whatever that size is called. I have a twin size bed, so I make afghans that fit on top of that. So yes, this yarn, see, I've been dithering for months about what yarn to use for this because I didn't want to make an afghan with wool sock yarn. I wanted something that I could throw in the washing machine if I need to, because I wash my afghans regularly. And so I was looking for like acrylic yarn or a cotton acrylic blend that would have the color variegation of the yarn that the pattern is designed for, because it's really cool in these brioche blocks to have color changing yarn for the brioche, the contrast color. So I was searching everywhere for something that would work and that would be the right colors and the right yarn weight and not horrendously expensive, and it kept coming up empty. And then I decided to do a test block in some acrylic yarn that I already have. This is Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek DK, and I have a stash of it from previous projects, and I was like, well, this actually looks really nice. It's not color changing yarn. They're solid or semi-solid colors, but I like the color scheme. It's mostly like grays and this color, which is burgundy, and some dark greens and blues and stuff. So it fits my desired color scheme, I guess. So I'm going to proceed with getting more of this yarn and just using this, because why not? I also happen to know that this acrylic yarn washes very well. I've made a couple of garments out of it that have been put through the washing machine and the dryer multiple times, and they look fine. So I don't have to worry about this yarn falling apart, which is something that has happened to me on every other hexagon afghan I've made. I am cursed when it comes to hexagons, guys. This is my third and last attempt at making a hexagon afghan that won't be destroyed in the washing machine or with regular use. So anyway, so you'll be seeing more of these blocks in the future, I'm sure. I can knock out one of them in a day if necessary, but it'll probably take me a little while to make a whole bunch of these, because I bet I'm probably gonna need about 20 of them. And most of them will be the more complicated, larger brioche one. So that is that, and more gray and burgundy. Now let's move on to a little natural dyeing segment. I haven't done any natural dyeing in a little while, but this past month I finally experimented with logwood extract. Logwood is like the heartwood of a tree, basically. And instead of getting like pieces of logwood, I got extract. There's a place called A Verb for Keeping Warm that sells a whole bunch of natural dye extracts, and they're very concentrated and very potent, and you don't need a whole bunch. If you're dyeing with natural dye stuffs, you usually need an equal weight of the dye stuff to what you want to dye, and that means you can end up with like handfuls of wood chips or whatever. It can be a bit messy and what have you. So I decided I wanted to try out some extracts, and the first one is logwood. And purples and grays and almost blacks, guys. This was so exciting to do. I do my natural dyeing with my mom because she's also really interested in this, and we were just kind of squeeing over the colors because we have done so many experiments that just give us yellows, more yellows, maybe an orange, and some really muddy yellowy browns. So it was really fun to get something that was definitely not a yellow. So most of this is just dyed in varying intensities on superwash wool, but I've got a little bit of silk and silk wool blends here. This is my favorite one though. Look at this silk swatch. Isn't that amazing? I am absolutely going to get a couple yards of this silk noil and dye it up and use it in a garment. Like, I'm thinking about making a pair of pants with some hand-dyed, natural dyed fabric. I would do it right now, but the fabric is back ordered, like everything else that I want from Dharma Trading Company right now. And then the wool that was the same intensity of the color also came out in this really dark purple. This is definitely my favorite, although I also really like this one, which is more like a lavender color. This is a silk wool blend for the yarn, and then the 100% silk noil swatch on there as well. So I was trying to use instructions from a book about how to use these extracts and how to get specific depths of shade. So I did some that were very dark and then some that were very light, and then I tried to do some that were in the middle. So here's a lighter shade kind of in the middle between the very light and the very dark purples. And this is the lightest purple. I think it's coming across more gray on camera, but this is in person a very light, like a pale wash of purple. And logwood is frequently used in dye recipes for getting black. And I've experimented with different colors, different dye stuffs that are supposed to produce grays and blacks when you add an iron modifier to them, and I've never actually gotten black. I've usually just gotten some kind of complicated grays or yellow browns. But logwood is just frequently used in like over dyeing steps. Like if you want to get a real black with natural dyes, you will maybe do it with pomegranate and then over dye it with logwood and iron, and you just get more depth and more of that solid black color. So what I did, my first attempt at getting a black was this, and this is that really dark purple color with iron added. So it's the same depth of like, or intensity of the dye with just iron added, and it's a really cool gray. I mean, it's probably the best dark gray that I've gotten from any project, and I got some really cool purpley gray colors from avocado and iron in the past. And then when I had done all of those others, I came back the next day and was like, maybe I just need to amp up the intensity of the dye, like put in more of this logwood extract as well as more iron to get a darker color, closer to black. So I put in some wool, some silk, and a wool blend and just ramped the intensity up. And you can see here on the wool, it's pretty close to black. You look at it in natural light, in really good light, and it looks like it has almost a navy undertone to it, like it could be a really, really dark navy. But in poorer light, it actually does look black. The silk fabric came out a dark gray, and then I put in the silk wool DK weight yarn. It also came out a I don't know, medium gray color. It just tells you how much the fiber matters in that. Wool takes up a lot more color or darker color than the silk does, and when they dry, the silk pales a lot more. So this was so fun, and I love the purples, and I think the grays and the almost blacks are really, really cool. So yeah, I will be doing more with logwood in the future because I really have my heart set on trying to dye up a bunch of fabric. That will be an interesting challenge for me because I'm not sure if I have a large enough dye pot to do like 3.5 yards of fabric. I'm gonna find out though whenever I can get my hands on more of the fabric. I actually got a lot of yarn in June. I went to a yarn store in person and I got stuff for projects, and I ordered stuff online. I have pretty things to show you. So the first bit of yarn that I got is this very, very teal color. This is Malabrigo Machita in the color Teal Feather. It is a fingering weight single ply yarn, and I'm going to make a sweater out of it. I know, single ply yarn. This whole project is basically going to be like a fashion piece. I'm going to make the Filigree sweater by Julie Knits in Paris. I actually started making that in a completely different yarn last year, and it was the wrong color. I needed a solid color, so I got this, and I'm gonna do it, and we'll see how the yarn wears or doesn't wear. But yeah, I wanted something that was going to drape really well because a whole bunch of this sweater that I'm gonna make is lace, and it's actually designed with a single ply yarn, so that's why I went with this. I also got a sweater quantity's worth of this burgundy yarn. This is Jagger Spun Organic Wool. It is a sport weight yarn. The color is actually Bordeaux. I got this specifically to make the Daydreamer sweater by Andrea Mowrey. It's a sweater that's also supposed to be done in like mohair held double with sock yarn or something, but you can do it in sport weight, and I thought it would be nice to do something different. So that's what I got this for. I also got some brown and tan yarn on the same base, this sport weight organic wool base, just to have on hand because they were nice neutral colors, but it has a project in mind. I actually bought a lot more yarn than that in the past month, but the last thing I'm going to show you is just the super special yarn that finally arrived after over a month in transit, and it came in a bag. So I've got a bag. Yeah, I can always use more bags. But basically I treated myself to the Graceling collection by Third Vault Yarns. When I saw Lola posting pictures of these colorways on Instagram, I was like, I need them. These colors are inspired by the Graceling books by Kristen Kishore, and I did read the latest one, the fourth one, back in what, January, February, and I loved it. So I got all the colorways. There are only 4 of them, and they go really well together. So this is what they look like. There's the purpley version. This is called Unfathomable Depths, and this is the one that I think might be based on Winterkeep, the latest book. Then there is Crown of Flames, which is probably fire, and then Quietest Sleep. What's the other one? Oh, probably Graceling. And then the blue version is Storm's Eye, and this is maybe Bitter Blue? I'm not entirely sure on that. But they're really cool and they look so fantastic together. I am determined to use all 4 of these colors together in a massive project. I really want to do something that will show off the colors, maybe do a bit of a fade in between them. I don't want to split them up. So they will probably become a gigantic shawl of one kind or another. I've had my eye on some of Stephen West's shawls, like the Westfjords Wanderer shawl, which I don't have enough here. I'd have to find some other colors to go with these to do that one because it's so huge, or else scale it down. Also, I've been looking at some of the brioche shawls by Knit Graffiti, and her stuff is so pretty, and you know I love brioche. So I'm gonna sit on these for a while and wait for the right pattern, I guess, to materialize for these, but they're so lovely. I got all these on the Companion 4-ply base, which is just a 100% wool fingering weight. So it's not really sock yarn because it doesn't have nylon in it, but it is sock weight. And that is pretty much it. It's very hot and I'm still wearing mohair and wool. So that's the end of this episode. As you can tell, I am awash in projects. I'm just obsessed and I'm having such a fun time. And hopefully next month, or I should say now in July, I will get around to doing a bit more sewing because I've got a couple of larger sewing projects I would really like to get started on, and some more natural dyeing because I've got weld and cochineal and more madder and black walnut, so many pretty colors to play with. So I'm sure I'll be back soon with more things to show to you guys. So okay, yeah, there are a lot of fireworks going off now, so that is the end. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you again soon, and until then, bye.